Welcome everybody at our 45th webinar. Today as a guest we have, let's say, famous Michael Nielsen, former development manager at the Dynamics NAV team. Business Central, I don't think it was there already, Michael. But I leave a little bit space to you to introduce yourself a little bit more if you think you need to. Michael will talk about source control and audit trail. Let's say the backside of a project he did, or a project he has been working on for NAV, about, well, how could you apply source control to all those apps that are on a customer side, or at least a part of it. But I'll leave that to Michael. As always, let's move through a couple of slides just to make clear to everybody, maybe not yet joined before, that your microphone is muted, but you're very welcome to post questions in the questions window. Please use that. I will be the moderator of today. My name is Luc van Vught, and I will pose questions to Michael. We agreed that I will pick up the questions that make sense to the part of the topics he's discussing at that time, and I will pose it instantly. Otherwise, I will keep it to the end. So feel free to step in with your questions. As you might know, everything will be recorded. Our channel is slowly piling up with different kind of sessions, and I think looking at that, people are still referencing them, that they are worthwhile to the community. If you want to stay in the know of what is coming next, feel free to use this URL to subscribe to our newsletter. And, well, you will be informed, but, well, the last one is a couple of weeks or a month ago already. For what's next, you will always find this on our website, links to where you can register for the ones coming up. So in 14 days, we'll have a session with Arend-Jan Kaufman on working with XML in AL. On March 1st, Waldo will talk about the AL Patterns and Guidelines Initiative. And on March 15, Stefano Demiliani will talk about working with files in Business Central SaaS. How do you go about where there is no file system, but still, how can you work with files? And as always, we're continuously looking for speakers and or topics. Be one to suggest or be one to speak. I'll get, well, the next newsletter out as soon as I get one of the next sessions set up. So that's what I want to share with you for today, and I'm going to hand over to Michael. But before I do, I want to thank for NAV being our sponsor and making this every second Tuesday or every bi-weekly Tuesday able for us. So Michael, I'm going to make you presenter, and it's up to you to start sharing your screen.
Thanks, Luc. Just a few words about my background. So I'm by guarantee the person on this planet who has worked longest with the Business Central and NAV product. I started in '87, creating the first report writer for NAV back then. Then I created the A language and wrote Heart of Seaside, and but up until me leaving Microsoft 5 years ago, I really didn't write any L code, so I have picked up on that and also have digged into a lot of the issues that you see out there when moving from Seaside to the new world of Visual Studio Code. So the problem I'm going to address today is the issues around storing code and also storing data. Because back in the Seaside days, you could get FOB files out or even pull out the source code. There were some dirty hacks doing that, but it worked, and a lot of people got the code out of there so they could actually track a customer solution and figure out what was going on it. Also, even though that Business Central has tripled back up on the SQL Server, we see that a lot of people lose the data. So one example is custom report layouts, where a lot of people are unaware that actually the custom layouts are per company. So if you delete a company, you also lose all your custom layouts. And of course, you can ask Microsoft for backup, but then you also get your financial data backed up, and you probably don't want to do that. So a lot of people have lost tons of work on this. Also, when you start working on extensions, you figure out the hard way that if you are on a sandbox, your developer extensions are going to be killed every month when a new CU is rolled out. That's due to some internal infrastructure and BC. But if you basically have the idea that your code is up there and you can always download it, you're wrong, because once it's been deleted, it's gone, and there's no backup that can save you. So we've also seen a lot of people losing their work with a lot of L code in there. Of course, the common pattern is that most partners have source control using Azure DevOps or GitHub to do this today. But this, what I'm going to talk about today, is addressing something else, and it's more from the customer perspective that I'm looking into this. So the idea is that if you have a Business Central system and you want to have control over what's installed in the system and what changes have been made to it, you can actually use this. So the interfaces I've used is all public in Business Central, so there's no rocket science or secrets in this. You can go and create this, of course, if you want to. But let me show you how we have moved into this. So I'll dive into showing you how this actually surfaces, but I'll also spend some time on the setup, because it's also important that a tool like this is easy to set up. So in here you can see I have extension management and I have data management, but let's go and look at the extension management. And this is an old sandbox I've been playing around with, so there's a lot of stuff in here that works and something that doesn't work. So basically what we're having is an overview of what I've had on this sandbox since I created it back in September, I believe. And you can see actually there's a lot of stuff that's not valid anymore, and I even have one down here that's inaccessible. And the idea about having these is if a partner has created something with show my code false, only the partner can get to this code. And if the partner goes bankrupt, you're toast, because there's no way to get to the code. And you cannot get to the code, it will be uninstalled at a point in time by Microsoft, and then you cannot access the data anymore. So this is really, really bad. So the first thing you should look in such a tool is the show my code false extensions, which is just a bad habit. But unfortunately, show my code is false by default, so a lot of people have these in the system. As long as the relationship between the partner and customer is a happy marriage, then you're okay. But if something goes wrong, this is not a good way to have your IP in here. Also, in my last demo I did of this, I have some extension here, and I can show you what actually is the reason why it was uninstalled, so I can go and look at the version history. So I asked GitHub in this case about what was happened, and you can see this was created sometime in November, but it was then deleted on just some days back. And of course, the reason of this is there was a new CU rolled up, and it was deleted by Microsoft. So this is now gone. And you can see in here, I can download the app, how it looked in any of these timestamps. I can also reinstall it. I can also, if there was one already up there with a different version, I can replace it. And again, this is all using these public APIs that BC has. But this is a sort of a boring extension to look at. So let's look at something that has some interest. For this demo purpose, I created an extension called obsolete. And if I go and look at how it looks, I can explain you why it's actually deleted. So if I press analyze, I go and grab the code up there, and then I analyze the code and present the result into an Excel spreadsheet. So it just needs to wake up, so we should get the spreadsheet here. So the whole idea is to present metrics that can help you evaluate the state of the code. And you can see in here there's some yellow and some red in here. First of all, if I go and look at from the top, you can see we have introduced something called cyclomatic complexity. That's originally a term that comes from Java, where you measure the number of branches in your code. So if you have many if statements with and or case statements in there, this number will grow. Usually in Java, we say that about 10, that's not acceptable, but AL is a different beast. So I've been sort of kind, so I say this low complexity is below 10, medium is 10 to 30, and then 1 is above 30. You can see there's one that's really, really complex in here. Then I have down here a list of depreciated. So I simply take the depreciation list from BC19 and look at the code, and then look at which features has been removed. And as you can see, this is really bad because I have 19 issues of removed features in the system, and that's the reason why this was uninstalled. But because when Microsoft upgrades from an old BC version, they automatically remove things that's now removed, and again the code will stop working and you cannot access the data. And down here I have places where I access tables that are fragile, so I don't want to have code that writes in my posting logic table. At least I want to make sure that I know what they're doing. But let's dig into some of the data over here. So I'm just going to enable editing so I can go and filter this. So go to objects, and I can go to my complexity. You can do this. And if some of this code looks familiar, is because I have basically taken code unit 80 from BC 14 as an example to look at if you just had code that was working perfectly in 14 without any compilation or warnings in here. This is how it looks in the new world. And actually this code will not install anymore because of these obsolete things in there. But we can see this is the center with the 34 count in cyclomatic complexity. And if we go and look at this and have a little patience, then GitHub will lead us to the function. Here it is. So this is a copy and check item charts. And you can see in here the reason behind this is there's a lot of these if statements in here that makes it hard to read. But it sort of gives you an idea where the complexity is, and you can also, of course, use this on your own code. If I go back to the page again, I can take something else. I can take the next one, which is a little bit better. Again, I need to count to 10 to get to the bookmark. So we can get down there. There you go. This is the P-payment sales line with rounding, which is also from ages ago. And you can see there's also a lot of code in there with if statements. So the whole idea is to see the state of these functions and figure out if you want to improve them. Because if you put some poor new guy on changing this, you probably would have a problem creating something that works. So it's always good to keep complexity down and split this into fewer functions. But let's move through the spreadsheet, and we can go and look at the depreciated. And of course, temp blob is here the big center. So we can go and look at some code where this is actually used. So this is in a build and the custom layout code unit in here. So this basically lights up and tells you that you need to change this because this code will not run anymore. But that you can also see there's a lot of other warnings in here. With statement, of course, is in there. And also, actually, this could be interesting, the geologging. And here. So again, need to get this to move to the bookmark in here. So okay, and here, so this is also gone. So the whole idea is to get an overview of what's going on in your code. So if you run this, it's much nicer to clean this up on the fly instead of looking at the day where the customer actually gets a mail from Microsoft saying your extension is out of compliance and it'll be uninstalled automatically if you don't fix it. And if you have a lot of customers, you have a rough months to basically fix this and make sure everything works, and that's not a nice feeling. So it's really good to go and look at these once in a while. So we just put this in a spreadsheet, but of course you can also use the compiler to go and look at these views. But I know that if once your code is up there and the customer is happy, people are very unlikely to go and check this. But this is basically a way to go and look at these things in here. But let's go and look at the access warnings in here. Let's just take one of them and go and look at the code. And of course, this is coded in 80, so this is natural that this is actually writing in the posting tables. But in most cases, you don't want people to write in the posting tables. So one exception, of course, is that you have to write in the posted sales invoices every time you print and increase the number of copies printed. But I think that's a design flaw in BC. But otherwise, you should not have code that's right into these tables outside the normal business logic, because it's a way of malicious people also coming into your system. So in this case, I have basically taken this from the this obsolete code unit, but you can also from the code tracker over here go and take all your extensions. So you basically get a whole overview of what's going on the machine. So you've got all the extensions in here, and you can analyze them all and look at them in one go. So this is basically the idea behind looking at your code, and of course you can reinstall it, download the source, and play around with it in Visual Studio Code and look at it there. So this is it's sort of a cockpit to overview what's going on with your logic and make sure that you have copies of everything, and also that nobody who's not supposed to are tampering with your code and putting logic that can steal money from you or tamper with the system in other means. So that's one part, that's a code part, but there's also a data management part. And sort of inspired by the changelog, which still exists inside BC after being there many years, we created a changelog, but a changelog that stores changes in GitHub. And again, if I got admin rights, or I can get code in, I can always circumvent the built-in changelog. So actually, the changelog is not hiding anything or protecting anything. You can tamper with it and get away with it, and that's the same cloud on-prem. It's very hard to figure out if somebody actually did something malicious or delete data by coincidence, and you want to know who did it. That can be completely hidden inside the system. But by putting this into a source control system, we make sure that these things are separated. So unless you have the password to the source control system, you can actually not change the history of this. And also in case you think, what about if I change this the setup in here? That's also logged, so you can see if somebody tampered with the changelog that's putting into GitHub. But if we look at one of them in here, see if I can table. I want to look at the fields. this is just like the changelog, so I can put in which fields I want to monitor and track what's going on with the values. And for the fun of it, let's go into the vendor bank account where I have made a couple of changes to the data. So go and look at this. This is more important. So this is also a tree, so you can actually find a way into what goes on. Because otherwise, just like the changelog in BC, you would have to filter and go to a gazillion rows in there to figure out what you want to look at. But let's go and look at this East record in here. See, this was created back in November when I started the code tracking here, and now it's been modified. So if we go and look at this, I can go and look at the files on GitHub. I can see, okay, so this is strange. So I changed the bank account number to Michael's bank account. That's probably not good because now Michael is getting the money from the company. I don't think that's the idea. And let's go and look at the next one. I can see Michael has been trying to hide this, so he has just moved it back. So this will actually highlight in green and red in here what actually has been going on with my data. So I can go and get Michael arrested for doing fraud. So again, this is the whole idea is that this is stored in GitHub, which is separate from your system. So you think about more about this as an auditing tool than a source control system, because we don't want to compete with as a DevOps or mainly GitHub, because people know how to use them already. So if you're a developer and your partner already got these systems, so that's not what we want to do. So this is more meant to do audit trail and figure out what's going on in your system. But let's go and look at the setup, because that's also an art if you do such a thing. That has to be really, really simple to set up. So you can see up here I have the lead repository, but this is actually only because the repository is a public one that we offer. So this is a really easy way to get a demo of this, is to just use our public repository. In the real world, if you have a private repository, this action is not up here at all. You can also see down here that this is GitHub hosted, but under the hood we actually support a lot more of these different source control systems. But we found out that most people are not really interested in which vendor they use. They just want to get this done. But let me complete this by showing you the wizard we have been created, code tracker wizard down here, to show the experience. So basically I can set up if I want to have a public or private. If I use this, I can choose my repository name in here, and I can set it up to track immediately to get the last changes in, and set in automatic tracking also, that make sure that every change that's made to your extensions or data is actually going to be tracked on the system, and then I'm finished. And that's basically all it takes to get this done. So we haven't decided yet if we want to actually make money off this product or give it away, or what we want to do with it. But anyway, if there's some of the code you're interested in, you can get most of it free. Just send me an email and you can get it, because this is all about having a learning experience. I had a lot of fun doing this, especially on the spreadsheet side, and also tweaking the L compiler to work on in as a function. Doing these things is incredible amount of fun. Also working with the cross section of doing L code, and also doing things in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. But I think this is basically it. There's really nothing more on this. So I hope you have some questions around this.
There's one question from Michael Promberger. Can you track which app has been installed, deinstalled?
Yeah. So that's basically so BC only allows us to look at installed or uninstalled. So actually saved here is installed and deleted is uninstalled. We cannot see published and unpublished because that's hidden in the system, at least for now. But deleted is uninstalled, but we don't know if it's unpublished as well. So we just write it as deleted because we don't know the exact state. But the answer is yes.
And in case of your status deleted, if I uninstall an extension, I can also get the data deleted. What's the difference in this case between uninstalling and leaving the data and uninstalling and also deleting the data?
That's a great question. So we cannot see the difference. So of course, if you delete the data, that's really bad because now you can just get the code back by reinstalling it, but you cannot get the data back.
Yeah.
But it's always a really bad thing to delete your data, no matter what. At least in my opinion.
No, of course, true. But
I never do that. So because you might uninstall something by mistake and then say, "Oh, I probably want my data back as well." And Microsoft will basically let it be there forever if you leave your data in.
Yeah, true. What major? That's a question somewhere rumbling in the back of my head, but let me try to pose it right. What challenge did you come across? I mean, if are there any parts in the extension that you cannot access, or can you access everything with what you did?
So I found out that there are limitations in Business Center, of course, that we have to live with, and actually they are harder on-prem than on cloud. But on-prem you can do nasty stuff and to get around that. But on the cloud solution, you cannot see published and unpublished. That's what you see in here. That you cannot see that, and also like a lot of other people, I've tried to convince Microsoft to be able to get the app file because that's really important also to get the real stuff and not just the source code. But Microsoft is not willing to let you download the app file because they think people do nasty things with them. I just want to store them. But actually, I got around that by enabling that I can compile the L code now in my Azure function and get the app file. So that's of course I get a lot of compilation errors because I don't have symbols, but it doesn't matter. I get the app file, and now I can basically put that back into BC and reinstall it. So that's the whole trick.
Okay.
So Microsoft left these things wide open, and it's okay that we use them. But actually, since Microsoft came up with this new universal code initiative, where they want everybody to use the cloud target also for on-prem, I've been working with the Microsoft team to get rid of these difference between on-prem and cloud, because it's Microsoft should also eat their own dog food and have the on-prem solution be the same as the cloud solution, and they clearly understand that, and that means that we should be able to download source also from an API on-prem, and also there's a number of other details that they need to provide, but they're open to doing this, and I hope they will do that for BC20 when that gets out. And I also got an opening on downloading the app file, because it doesn't make sense that I have to compile code to get the app file when they just can provide me with a download function.
Yeah. what argument do you need in your decision to make this community available or commercially available?
So, so right now the Azure function is basically, it's needed in there, and I don't want everybody in the world to run such a hosted Azure function. But let's see if we can figure out something what to do with it, or maybe we'll do something that's in between. But because most of the code is just plain AL code, and I don't see any reason or way to monitor this at all, because it's just calling the normal BC APIs, and if anybody else wants to do this, they can just get the code. I'm not going to sit on it.
Yeah, clear.
And I hope other people will do the same, because that's the way to go.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't see any other questions, Michael, so I think it was sounding clear. I don't have any questions at the moment. Is there anybody out there who still wants to pose a question? Feel free to do that. So we have a short session, so there is a lot of time left if you have questions.
So Luke, maybe we should talk a little about this universal app thing, because I believe that's important for a lot of people. So unless you haven't heard about it, it's about putting a tax on using files and DLLs if you are on-prem.
Yeah.
And so far, I think until April 1st, you can buy a BC license without paying this tax. But after that, it's actually a lot of money moving forward. I think it's $225 to modify the base app, US dollar per month.
Yeah.
And then it's $175 for using DLLs. And of course, Microsoft wants to push everybody to the cloud, so that's the background. That's okay, because without the cloud, there wouldn't be any Business Central. So I agree in that decision. But for the people who use DLLs and also file, this is not the greatest news in there. So what we have done with the Fnac product is actually we have created an on-prem service that we use, just like we have a cloud service for our cloud solution. We have an on-prem service now, and that's actually pretty easy to write just in C# and create a service that does exactly what your cloud service is doing. And you can also extend this to be a file service.
So it's a kind of proxy where your AL code runs similar on-prem and SaaS, but then you have another service to make it run on-prem.
Exactly. So the trick is inside your AL code, you check if you're running on the Microsoft Cloud. And of course, if you're running on the cloud, Microsoft Cloud, you call out to an Azure function or a website or something like that. But then if you want to run locally, you can simply set up a local host or any other local address in there and call that and incept that with a small web server written in C#. And it's actually 10 lines of code to get that enabled. So it's pretty neat. And then you can basically call out of your cloud-enabled universal code extension and do everything just on-prem and without doing the DLL. So the DLL you can basically host inside the service, and then you can have exactly the same code on cloud and on-prem with the only difference that you have this if statement in there. And for our product, we have created both a service to do printing, but also to render our reports and also saving files locally. And it's sort of by big surprise, it's been really easy to create this. So but if you haven't started on this already, you need to do that. And also, even though you might convince your customers to pay this DLL or file tax, then you probably also know that Microsoft is working on moving Business Central from .NET Framework to .NET Core. And once that happens, of course, they will give us notice on when that's going on. A lot of DLLs out there will stop working, and the case is that a lot of DLLs are really old, and people don't have the source for these, and they're never going to be upgraded to .NET Core. So no matter what, we all need to move to the world of service. But fortunately, there's a way of doing this on-prem that sort of emulates what you're doing in a cloud solution. Everything then runs on your local server. So even if you have a bad internet connection, this also works, of course.
All right. And is this something you are sharing or can demo something on? Or is this just the concept at the moment?
So let me actually I have it open here. So let me. I hope people can. Okay, working on some C# code, but this is really simple. So let's. So this is basically all this up here is our old DLL, and on top of this, I've created this report service. And basically, it's a Windows service which is also well documented. So you can put in hooks in here that says I want to run, uninstall, or start uninstall this service. But that's basically just plain .NET stuff. But the important thing is that I have a listener in here. So Luke, I haven't prepared for this. So you
no.
I need to.
I'm challenging you.
So most of the code is actually writing to the event log, because that's an important part if you write this, because otherwise people won't have a clue what's going on. Some live, and let me see if we can.
Well, if it's too much, we have a topic for our next session.
Yep.
I'm still looking for speakers.
Yeah. So basically, what you set up is HTTP listener. That's also well documented in .NET. And there's some plumbing code, but at the end of the day, it will call into this function in here. And then you simply set up how many concurrent requests you want to handle. I think 100 is often in there. And then you simply add this to a listener. And then you can see somewhere I add this process request async. So whenever there's a new call coming in, and a lot of people, of course, can be pounding this, because this is, if you have a lot of users on your PC on-prem, they will all call into this. But if you reach 100, you'll just be queued and nothing will happen. But if you're under 100 in this case, you run in parallel, of course, depending on how many threads your CPU can handle. This will also be a bottleneck, but we haven't seen any limitations in here. So once somebody calls in, after setting up this code, they will basically be led into this process request async thing, where I can pull out stuff, just like a normal HTTP client, and then work on that, and then do whatever I need to do. So this is basically a function call where I can look at this query string in here that tells me which parameters I have. I can even put a bigger workload in here and then do what we're supposed to do. So in this case, this is actually taking a data set from Business Central and then creating a PDF based on a FNAF layout. But it can be used for anything. You can also call this with a stream from BC that contains a file, and then you can save this locally on your hard drive. So whatever you could do in the old days with DLLs, you can actually do this in the service. And also for those of you who work with .NET Interop in BC, it's not a walk in the park, because BC has difficulties getting the right references. There's type conflicts and all sorts of things you can run into. But the service there's just one service, and you can replace it without having to change the DLL references. So BC is actually happier, and you won't run into all these side-by-side issues that you normally have running DLLs. So you just have to install this service, and you can build it out to do whatever you want to do. If it's files or transforming data sets into something else, or sending things to other places in your network, it can be done very easily in here just by doing a HTTP client on the BC side and then picking it up in this code. And it's very little code that you need to do. There's of course all this plumbing with the getting the events and setting it up, but that's it's very easy to Google, and you can also get the code from me if you want to do it. But this is a way to move forward. Before this, we actually consider using a commercial web server like IIS or Apache. But you know, Apache is hard hit by this virus currently, and IIS is a terrible beast to work with, because for each version it works differently, and setting this up with and inside the local firewalls is even worse. So my advice is never to use any of them. This is much easier, and you don't have any dependencies on anything than the Windows installation. And this has worked for ages. It's an old technology that sits in there. So at least for our purpose, we found out a long time ago that getting a universal app is actually just about replacing your cloud service with having an one that's installed together with the NST, and then everything works just like just on the cloud, just on-prem. And once you have explained people how it works on cloud, they can easily understand what's going on-prem.
Is there no vulnerabilities on this one?
It only works on the NST, and that means it only supports HTTP in there. So of course, if you have hacked your way into the NST, you can also see what's going on. But if somebody has done it, you have more severe issues because then you can hack into database calls and what have you.
Yeah, clear.
And most people know these days that they need to be really careful of opening up the NST to do anything from the outside. But this runs on the same box, and it's really lightweight, so it shouldn't cause any issues.
Sounds a good option, and yes, it's good to bring to conscience what the Universal Code initiative is going to mean for us, and that we need to take care. And this could be a good, let's say, efficient way of getting things in the right shape.
And also, there's a lot of thought out there for fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's being spread also among customers. People are really careful about doing these on-prem installations because Microsoft has sort of scared them. But it's by doing this, it's very easy to basically take out the fear and tell everybody that you're okay, because we can move things around. And also, when .NET Core comes, even IT managers out there asking about this, you can tell them that that's perfectly okay, because this solution provides also a solution for that.
Are you going to share this community-wise, or is this something, or you're just showing an example and this is how you solved it, and you informed us, and it's up to us to pick it up similarly?
So if I can find a place to put the code, you can help me look. I can put out examples on this.
Yeah.
Because I'm too old to make it to the blog community, so I'm never made into that. So I need some help.
Well, you're doing your best on LinkedIn.
I'm not even on Facebook. I never made that. So sorry about that. But if I can maybe I can share the code with you, and then you can provide it to use of other people, because there's
GitHub repo.
There's nothing secret in here. It's just some C# code, and I also got most of it by Googling.
Yeah.
After this HTTP listener thing.
Yeah. Well, feel free to share whatever way, and I'll help you to make it available.
So probably the hardest thing is to create the Windows installer to install this, because that's a nasty piece of work. But that can probably also be Googled. So
yeah,
creating the service is really easy. So I created this in over a weekend. So it's not a big deal, and if you have the code, it's even easier. But the installer can be tough.
Yeah.
Of course, you can copy in the service directly, but that's also not a great idea.
True. And surely if you want to use this multiple times, it's no fun to do that every time again.
No. So,
okay.
So now, sorry, I had hijacked the topic. So any questions about that? So I can.
Well, there are two questions from Chris Watson regarding the previous part. I don't see any questions on this one, so let's pick Chris' questions. The first one from Chris is literally is the audit trail atomic? So the audit trail part is atomic. I reckon that's clear enough for you to answer, or should Chris?
Yes, it is. Is it atomic? So.
Okay, clear.
Yeah.
And Chris' second question. Do you think that Microsoft will add escrow services for apps so that source code will be available to the end user?
Honestly, I don't believe that, because a lot of partners, they want to hide the IP, so I don't think that will happen. So I had that discussion with Esben and others from Microsoft, and that's a lot of partners, they want to hide the code, and I don't want to share the IP, so I don't think that will happen.
Clear. And your name twin, Michael Nielsen, is giving you a compliment. Great sharing attitude from Michael Nielsen. We should ask which one.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? I mean, anybody can hijack this meeting right now. I mean, Michael did it. Well, guess not. Michael, I think we're going to close up for today. Yes, let's see how we can share that code. Well, let's give it a try. First, I will, of course, share the recording. People have seen this. And then let's see how we share your code to the community.
Yep, let's do that.
James Reynolds, thank you, gentlemen. So you're very welcome, James. Michael, nothing left for you?
Okay, thank you, Luke.
You too. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Have a good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. We'll meet possibly in 2 weeks with the next session on the 15th of February by Arend-Jan Kaufman. And of course, let me officially turn to the slide. So that's also good for the recording. Thank you very much, Michael. And well, let's see how we meet again, everybody. Have a good time. Bye for now.
Bye.